I think it goes without saying that Amber Steel Songs was the best deck towards the end of the first chapter, mainly for its ability to directly counter Ruby Amethyst control, which beat pretty much every deck in the format except this one. Moving into Rise of the Floodborn, this deck actually got a lot better. Let's go ahead and explore some of the reasons why. In my opinion, Let the Storm Rage On is probably the best addition to the deck because this 3-cost uninkable action song allows you to deal 2 damage to a chosen character and it replaces itself by letting you draw a card. Now normally this wouldn't be as good as it seems on paper without the addition of another card, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Moving on to the other song that you might want to add to the deck, Strength of a Raging Fire has great early and late game applications in my opinion. It allows you to deal damage to a chosen character equal to the number of characters you have in play. So early game, when you have 2 or 3 characters on board, this can help deal 2 to 3 damage to an opposing character to remove it from the field. Late game, when you flood the board with, let's say, a Rockstar Stitch combo, you can have somewhere between 5 and 7 characters on board. Now this card essentially becomes remove anything from the field, right? Because you're going to be dealing 6 or 7 damage to an endgame threat that your opponent has. But the card that ties all of this together is actually the new Cinderella. This card is a 1-drop that is inkable, 1/2 that has Singer 3, and it can sing both of these songs on turn 2 now, which is insane. So if your opponent puts up a big threat, early game, you can likely remove it from the field with one of these 2 spells, or actions I should say, thanks to Cinderella being a Singer 3. This new small package is absolutely crazy for the deck. But let's go back to the deck list and quickly evaluate some of the new additions and what we've dropped. So looking at the deck here, you can see that we've also made the addition of, I think it's the world's greatest criminal mind, which is a 3-cost inkable song that allows you to banish a character with 5 or more strength. And that I found in application is not nearly as good as I thought it was going to be, but it's still good to have in the deck and it is inkable. So if you don't end up using it, you just ink it and it's no harm, no foul. It's definitely better than Be Our Guest and Hakuna Matata, which is what you used to play in this deck potentially. Another addition is actually the 7-drop Cinderella from Steel because you can actually shift this onto the 1-drop Singer Cinderella on turn 5. Controversially, I did drop the 3-drop Tinkerbell, which I think has, after testing, more application in this deck than I thought it would. Just being able to shift Tinkerbell on turn 4, the giant fairy that is just way too useful, so I might look at adding that back in. I haven't found the Surfer Stitch to be nearly as useful as I thought it was going to be, and I found the Queen also just a tad underwhelming, although the Queen really does help put pressure on your opponent to really make them reevaluate if they want a quest, knowing that their character is likely going to get banished for free if it's exerted. That's how powerful the Queen is, which is, again, another addition to the deck. In total, we have 16 2-cost or lower characters that can combo with the Rockstar Stitch. We still play the 4 Ariel, and Rapunzel, I just found has limited application. You're going to be forcing the Rapunzel on your own end. Your opponent, if they're smart, is not going to play into your Rapunzel to allow you to heal. So most of the time, you're going to want to force damage on your own card in order to heal. And with things like the Cinderella and the Queen, you're likely not even getting that much damage on your cards to begin with. We're going to take a look at 2 quick matches with this Amber Steel deck, and what makes this deck very strong, in my opinion, is when you get the combos off, the deck is virtually unbeatable. But even if you don't get the combo off and you're kind of left with an awkward hand like what I have here, drawing into 2, Let the Storm Rage On, a big Tinkerbell, not really a way to facilitate some of my bigger plays right now, playing kind of slow. The deck can still hold up, and you can still hard cast those songs, and like I said, they replace themselves. They help you mill through your deck, not mill, but like, thin out your deck by allowing you to draw a card as it replaces itself, and you will eventually draw the threats you need, whether you wheel into them, you draw into them, I guess, not really tutor, but, aerial into some of the songs you need, etc. You will find the application that you need in order to eventually just pop off with this deck. So here you can see drawing into 3 uninkables in a row. Now my hand is all uninkables, and I've dropped my aerial, and of course I have no songs because I have 4 songs in my hand, and everything's just going wrong for this deck, right? My opponent is on Emerald, so I have to deal with this Flynn Rider, and it's going to force me to discard. What am I going to do? Well, again, you're going to just see how powerful this deck can be. Yeah, the opponent's going to force me to discard, and I'm like, yeah, okay, Prince John, control. I've played this. I know how good it can be. But again, Amber Steel counters this. Look at this. Yeah, wipe your board with a Grab Your Source thanks to an Aerial 3, and then drop another Aerial. And I just want to draw something for ink at this point, right? So I'm probably going to take that song, The World's Greatest Criminal Minds, and just like I said in the intro, or the deck list analysis, I can always ink that if I find no application for it. And against this emerald focused deck, I likely won't have an application for it. So I actually don't ink it the turn that I get it, because I figure depending on what I draw, or knowing that the opponent might have some more discard, it might not be worth playing right now. And you might think, hey, the opponent is far ahead. Look at this. You only have some characters on board that really don't do that much. But I'm going to wheel away all that advantage the opponent got off of those discard spells and that they wasted their turns playing. And this is why the deck is so good, is because you can just wheel into infinite advantage here. And I think the opponent kind of realizes at this point that they're so far behind now. You can see what they were tossing with that whole new world. They just end up scooping it up. So that last match, the opponent essentially scooped to a whole new world, right? Just shows you how powerful that card is still going to be in the metagame. In this next matchup here, we mulligan away some of our high costing cards and we get a much more playable hand, which is great. The opponent starts off by inking a Merlin Goat and playing a Cinderella, revealing that they are on Amber Amethyst, which is very interesting. The nice thing about this color combination is that it allows you to sing Friends on the other side, basically on turn 2, because you can use the Cinderella as Singer 3 to cast it, and that's exactly what this opponent is going to do here, which is pretty strong. Normally, you would cast that on turn 4, right? In the first chapter, you would sing it with a Maleficent, and that was a lot of value. It just goes to show you how much faster the game can be now with Rise of the Floodborn. So my opponent opts to put on some questing pressure in the Lilo, and right on time, we get a Let the Storm Rage On that we can sing with our Cinderella. It removes the Lilo, and it draws us a card. That's instant advantage right there. Absolutely crazy. We drop a Simba to protect the Cinderella and pass back to the opponent. So, you can see just how much advantage we have. Despite going second, we literally just took control of the match with that single play of Let the Storm Rage On off of the Cinderella. Now, the opponent does have a couple options here that they can utilize for sure. With the Amethyst package, you without a doubt will have access to very powerful Mim combos, which I've outlined on my channel in some videos already. And sure enough, that's exactly what the opponent does. But there was no point in playing Gruesome and Grim there. I'm not going to explain why, but you could have essentially just played the Madam Mim for 3, because as you can see here, they don't utilize the rest of their ink. So they just went -1 there for no reason. We draw and ink the World's Greatest Criminal Minds, because again, it doesn't have any application in the scenario. We drop our Aerial and we fish out a Grab Your Swords. Now, the opponent, unfortunately, thinks for a very long time on this turn, because my guess is, and this is an easy read to make on your opponent, anything they have in their hand that they intend to drop will die to Grab Your Swords. And so they already have 2 cards on board that are going to lose to Grab Your Swords. And so they just end up questing with the Cinderella here and inking a card and passing turn without playing anything. So this isn't, like I said, a pretty easy tell that they don't have anything that they want to play that'll die to Grab Your Swords, or what's left in their hand is high costing cards that they actually can't play on turn 4. So at this point, I know I'm in total control of the match. I play another Aerial and fish out Strength of the Raging Fire, which is insane because now this card does 4 damage as I have 4 characters on board, and it's singable with any of my 2 Aerials or my Cinderella. And instead of going for the obvious play of singing the Grab Your Swords and going 2 for 1 with that, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I bait out more or force more board widening by the opponent, commit stuff to the board, because I'm just going to keep flooding the board here. And this is where that control aspect comes into play, where they know they have to start making decisions to force out my cards, because they can't just let me continually build up a board. Otherwise, I'm just going to put too much pressure on board, and this color combination can't deal with it. There's no sweeper effects in this color combination. They only have targeted removal and rush characters, right? So right on time as well, we get the Rapunzel. And like I mentioned, you're going to really find it hard to get value off of your Rapunzel. So it may not be as strong in set 2 with, or as it was in set 1, because people are going to know how to play around the Rapunzel. They're not going to leave things exerted for you to crash into. They're going to make sure that, or good players will make sure that you don't get value off of your Rapunzel. So we get a draw 1, and that was our ink for the turn. And we're keeping up with ink just in case we do draw into the whole new world. And at this point, I'm thinking what I want to do. I don't want to play into another Madam Mim Fox, even though the opponent has used one and inked one. So the odds that they have probably one of the last 2 remaining ones in their hand is low. But they could play other iterations of bounce cards like the Madam Mim Snake or this Arthur, which is slower because it doesn't bounce right away. But they revealed their whole hand in 2 Zero to Heroes, I think it's called, in order to play Surfer Stitch. And now the opponent is looking like, okay, they're setting something up here. but just look at the power of this deck. I have a couple of options here, and I'm thinking through what might be the most efficient way to go through things. I did want to play the Cinderella, but I'm like, no, let me just wipe this opponent's board completely. So we drop Tinkerbell on turn 6, and then we're going to sing the Grab Your Swords with the Aerial. That wipes out everything except for the Surfer Stitch. But look at the size of our board now. It's 6 characters big. And so now all we have to do is sing with, it doesn't matter with the Cinderella or the Aerial here, but sing the Strength of a Raging Fire, and that deals 6 damage to the Surfer Stitch, instantly taking it out. And just like that, it is 6 on board to 0, 3 cards in the opponent's hand, and we have a big Cinderella to shift into, which this color combination can't really deal with unless they have a World's Greatest Criminal Mind. So just like that, they scoop, and that is the power of the new Amber Steel.